All right, welcome to our presentation on fat loss hierarchy. And I think it's absolutely critical if your main goal is to understand nutritional principles for true weight loss, but more importantly, fat loss. And I'm talking fat loss that's definitely a thing for forever. All right, so let's dive in. First, a reminder, right? All diets really do work until they don't. They really do. As you know, you've probably experienced, you've been on some kind of thing, whether it was keto, whether it was Weight Watchers, whatever it actually was, it did work until it didn't. And if we look at it statistically, here's the interesting thing is that over 88% of people in the US will lose at least 20 pounds at some point in time in their life. And this is a massive amount of people that have the capacity to lose weight. We do have the skill set in order to lose weight, but it is the fact that 90% will not only put it back on, but regain then some above that within 3 years after losing the weight. So yes, we lose 20, 30 pounds in our life. That's great, but then we gain it back and then some. Very ineffective, right? And it's probably not the goal, and that's why you're here. So just a reminder, nothing will work unless you do. And it is an internal work that has to happen. And that's why we're keeping on this conversation. All right, so let's look at this hierarchy. Think of it as a pyramid, right? When you're looking at a pyramid, the base is the ultimate foundation of which everything is built on. And for you and for anytime you're trying to lose weight or create a new habit or create a new structure of life, the only thing that matters is what you can adhere to, right? We're going to get into the weeds here. You're definitely going to want to stick around all the way until the end because the end actually is super beneficial with some key tips on how to actually make this happen. But ultimately, this first piece, adherence, is something that you need to think about. If you're unable to adhere to, sorry for the dogs in the background, if you're unable to adhere to the principles that we're going to talk about, then ultimately that's where you need to start. Being real, raw, and honest with yourself about where can I make the shifts so that I stick to whatever this is. If I'm doing too much, it's not going to work. And that's why I often say all or nothing leads to all of nothing, right? It's this like all or nothing approach. I'm either all in on this or I'm all out. And we want to be able to find balance. It needs to be a lifestyle. It needs to be livable. It needs to be able to go on vacation with you and you don't feel deprived. You need to be able to live life, have kids, be able to partake in the joys, the celebrations of life. Otherwise, it really won't work because you're just going to wait until you are less busy. And if that is something that you are thinking about at this time, right? I'm just too busy right now. Then ultimately, this is the best time to start working on things and adapting these principles. Because if you're able to start something when you're busy and move forward with it, right? No matter how strategically small that implementation is that you're going for, you are going to be successful. If you're waiting for a time when you're not busy and everything gets ideal, then the moment you do get busy, you're going to return back to where you're at now. And so it's just being honest with yourself about that for just a second. Because I want you to remember the phrase, methods are many, principles are few, methods often change, principles rarely do. And that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at the principles of fat loss. We're not looking at the methods. How you get there is ultimately up to you, but we're going to talk about some pieces there. You definitely want to stick around, all right? So here's the reality, like diets that don't work and for who they are, right? So keto, it will not work if you're a carb lover. It will not work if you like eating out. It will not work if you have a social life. So why would you think just because Susie down the block who lost 30 pounds with keto, and it's only been a year, she hasn't even gone past that, maybe 2, maybe 3. Why do you think it would work for you if those things don't identify with who you are and your behaviors and enjoyment out of life? We're just going to suck the enjoyment out of life by doing that. And you're going to fall right back into place. All right. So intermittent fasting, that's not going to work for you if you really struggle to get enough protein throughout your day and you're highly stressed out because kids, finances, work, life, right? It's the high stress that is going to increase our appetite, right? It's also going to decrease our body's ability to recover. And then we're going to deprive it of eating on a regular basis, increasing our cortisol even higher, making it even harder for our body to lose weight. And then we're probably going to binge and eat more. It's not going to be sustainable for us, especially if we don't get the nutrients that we need within that 1 to 2 meals, that short window time frame. Super low calories. For those that have binge tendencies, you really think going a super low calorie diet is the way to go? We're just going to like deprive ourselves, and then not be able to take it anymore because we deserve it, because we deserve a treat, right? I had a hard day. and then we're going to default back to our original patterning and probably worse. And that's not going to be helpful for your mental relationship, your emotional relationship with food, and let alone with yourself, right? Cookie cutter meal plans. Yeah, they work great. Just tell me what to eat. Tell me what to eat. Tell me what to eat. But I'm an autonomous human being and I'm an adult and I can eat what I want. And I'm tired of being told what to do. I'm not a child. And then I'm going to go and default. So just consider, like, when we really look at what the method is of all of these different ones, it may not work for you, which is why methods are many, but principles are few. So let's dive into the second and most key principle, which is understanding that it doesn't have to be slow, but it does need to be strategic. And that's why I say strategic, not slow. And when we look at just changing one lifestyle habit, we have a chance of being successful of about 85%, getting that habit to stick. And that may be just strength training. I'm going to start strength training 2 to 3 times a week. That feels very adherable to me. Remember, adherence was that baseline. But the moment we actually add a second habit, our chance of success with either habit of sustaining it and maintaining it drops down to less than 35%. This is extremely low. So you're telling me that I can do all things, all or nothing. It's going to lead to all of nothing. That's what this is proving to us. So the moment that you're like, well, I'm going to focus on strength training 3 to 4 times a week and I haven't been doing anything, I've just been sitting on my ass for the last 10 years. But you know what? I'm also going to start a diet. And so I'm just going to keep it really, really simple. I'm going to follow a meal plan. Chances of success just with those two things are going to drop down to less than 35%. The moment you add in a third habit, right? I'm going to walk on my non-days, I'm going to drink water, and I'm going to work out. Those 3 habits, boom, less than 10% chance of success. So it's not that you're going to go slow, it's you're going to go strategic. And you may tell me, but Joseph, I've got 50 pounds to lose and I've got this event in 6 months. Cool. Well, what if we only lost half a pound a week? Half a pound a week, Joseph, that's so slow. It's 2 pounds per month. Yeah, but it's strategic. So in the course of a year, you've lost 24 pounds that you're very unlikely to put back on forever in the rest of your life because you built the foundation through adherence to actually keep it off. You tell me what you would like. Would you like to go a little bit more on the strategic pace, right? Do you want to try and floor it from here to Las Vegas and go 130 miles per hour, running the risk of a major accident, which would completely kill you and or others that you love or innocent bystanders? Worst case scenario, you're just getting a fat ticket, maybe getting your license taken away, or you may get there on time, but at a record pace. Great, costs you a lot of gas. Or would you just like to go the speed limit for the most part the whole way and your likelihood of being successful, being safe, and actually saving some gas? Think about it, right? So we just need to be strategic with all of these things, which is what brings us to the second element, right? The second base of that structure is going to be your calories. And then tied to that are your macronutrients. And this is why I like this key reminder. Calories are king. Protein is queen. Carbs and fats are adjustable between. And what we mean by that is we must be in a caloric deficit. We must be in an energy deficit. We must be eating less calories than we are expending to see our weight drop. We cannot be overeating and still see our weight drop. It will not work. You will not lose weight. And so calories are king. So we have to create a calorie deficit in some way. That may be from eating less than we were before, then our body needs to maintain its weight level. That may be from adding in exercise. That may be from adding in walking and movement on the daily basis. And that honestly may be a combination of all of them, which is going to be ideal. But we need to then remember within that, protein is queen, because we don't want to just lose weight. Yes, you will lose weight if you're in a calorie deficit, but we want to lose fat. We want to show the muscle that we've got. The muscle that we've got keeps our posture, keeps our body able to move up and down and move all around and play with kids and grandkids and hike and do all of these wonderful, crucial things to our life's success and happiness. And so our key driver for this is to maintain protein. We all know in the house, the king might be the one in charge, but really, let's be honest, the queen's completely in charge, at least in my household, right? Queen runs the show. She knows what's happening. The king just kind of nods his head and looks around and smiles and goes along with it because he knows that's how it has to be. And so that's why we prioritize protein. It's going to help satiate, keep you full a lot longer. The more protein you have, the less hunger strikes you're going to have throughout this entire process. That's why, honestly, most people can go into a pretty good calorie deficit out the gate and they don't even feel hungry. They're like, I can barely eat all of these calories. And it's because it's coming from having plenty of protein within your diet. You will not hurt your kidneys. All of that has been proven. Research is up to date showing that you cannot hurt your kidneys from an increase in protein, even on a very high level that you would probably not ever be eating at. And we're talking extremely high level. The second thing to remember is that because it's keeping you fuller, it's also breaking down slower within your system. 20 to 30% of the calories that you eat from protein breaks down just by eating it. So it's working to burn fuel to raise your metabolism as you are eating it, whereas carbohydrates and fats are a lot slower. Carbohydrates are about 5 to 10% of them are burned during digestive phase, right? Some as low as 3, depending on its complexity. We won't get into the weeds. And then fats are 0 to 3%. Most fat just stays in your system as fat until you do stuff to burn them off, whether that's your just daily movement and energy expenditure, or it's from exercise, right? And so what we need to remember is that put ourselves in a calorie deficit, make sure our protein is high enough, and then adjusting our carbs and fats to whatever feels best for you. If you are a carbo junkie like me, and you like the way that it feels like me, because it allows you to have the energy to work out really, really hard and makes your muscles feel really good like me, and you enjoy some sugar like me, then you're going to want to keep your carbohydrates slightly higher. Now, if you're like, I'm all about the satiation, right? I want my peanut butters, I want my almonds, I want my avocado, right? And you're going to have those either way. But you're going to probably be the person that wants to have your fats higher and your carbs lower, right? If you'd rather have the butter than the bread, let's be realistic with where that falls. And most of our calorie surplus while we're eating too much comes from not the fact that we had the bread or the butter. It's the fact that we had both, and both of them actually put our calories too high. And so we just need to be really realistic with that. And so when we're looking at it, we're thinking, where can I make sure that my calories are cut low enough so that I'm seeing changes, but not too much, and focused on those macronutrients. All right. Number 3, physique. If your goal is to change physique, which is why you're here, which is why it's all about fat loss hierarchy, right? The next thing in the hierarchy is strength training. Like, you've got to build lean muscle mass to show lean muscle mass. People talk about, well, I just want to be toned. Cool. Build the muscle, burn the fat. It's exactly what we're trying to do here. So that means you've got to actually get in and push some weight, whether it's actual dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, weight that is a dead weight, whether it is some other form of resistance training, like machines or resistance bands or body weight. They're all equally effective. The method is many, but the principle is few, and that is that you must be doing some form of strength training for your body. So let's look at what type and what that looks like, right? So the training continuum is this. You see this scale here. You have within your realm this minimum effective dose on the left here, which is 2 to 3 times per week on average that you would want to be in. 2, honestly, for most people is a bare minimum to maintain the muscle that they have got. And 3 is where you can actually still slowly increase, but you've got to be pushing your limits on these. Like, you cannot go in and be finishing a set and it was a set of 10 and you could have really done 20 with the weights that you were using. There should only be 2 to 3 reps that you're like, I could barely squeeze those extra 2 to 3 reps out if I had to, right? 1 to 2, ideal. And so you've got to be able to maximize within that. This is the minimal effective dose to maintaining the muscle mass that you have. And the reason being, on average, people will only build between 1 and 7 pounds max of muscle per year. Honestly, for most, especially for the aging adult, it's between 0.5 and 3 pounds per year. And that's with a minimum of training 3 times a week. So you're going to work out consistently, 52 weeks, 3 times a week, and maybe build 1 to 3 pounds of muscle mass. So the moment that you put yourself in a calorie deficit and you're eating less, you want to do everything you can to preserve that very valuable muscle mass, because we don't want to lose our muscle and then just look even skinnier, fatter, skinnier, fatter. And we want to maintain our posture. We want to maintain the entire process. Now, women do have it lucky here, is that they tend to lose less muscle mass during a weight loss phase, a calorie deficit, than men do from a physique training standpoint, research has shown. So good for you. And they also can recover better, more often, from more exercise than men can, even better. Now, I don't know if that is just anecdotal from how hard it tends to be that people push, right? When you look at the wonderful male ego, right? And I'm sorry to get male, female here, not the objective. I'm very, very much of the open open aspect that we are all created equal, all have all capacities. There are some dynamics that are just helpful to talk about, right, from this standpoint. And so ultimately, people, males, to then tend to be able to recover less. But I also know that the male ego tends to be high, and sometimes they can push themselves beyond the limit that is truly recoverable within that session. So I wonder, still, just my own thought process, if then that turns into more muscle mass and therefore turns into more fat loss from that aspect. So just something anecdotal to continue to think about, right? So when we look at the opposite of the spectrum, back to this training continuum, the maximal recoverable dose for most people is 5 to 6 training sessions per week. Now, it is important to recognize that it is not just the number of sessions. It is the number of sets that you have within that session. It is the load that you use within that session, the volume, whether the weights, whether the sets, whether the reps, right? Whether the time under tension. It is all of these things that create stimulus within that determines the amount, right? Because I could do, honestly, 2 sessions a week, and I could make them 3 hours long, and they could be total body, and I could do 20 sets per body part and just destroy my body, unable to basically even move all the way until the next session, and still hurts, and get a lot out of it. But I could also go real minimal, 5, 6 days a week, barely get anything out of it. So it's also about what's happening within those sessions. But anyways, it is just important to see this from a perspective of what is the minimal effective dose to get results, and what is the maximum recoverable dose? What can you recover from? And that's absolutely critical for you. If you can't recover from it, then you're doing too much, right? And as we decrease calories, it can be harder to recover. There's less within your body system to go to work. Because when you're working out, you're destroying your muscles ultimately. You're breaking them down. You're tearing them. You are not getting stronger while you work out. The opposite. You're getting weaker with every set and every rep that you do. And it is only during your recovery that you actually improve your body and replenish it. And strength training is just trying as best as possible to eliminate the loss of muscle mass on your body while in a calorie deficit, which is why it goes up that pyramid spectrum, right? Way more valuable than doing cardio while in a calorie deficit, which often will turn into decreasing muscle mass a lot faster. And that's not what you want here. You don't want to lose fat. You want to lose fat. You don't want to just lose weight, right? All right, so that brings us to number 4. Our daily calorie output is made up of NEAT and cardio. NEAT is an acronym here. So let's look at these. So NEAT stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So let's break down those words. Non-exercise. So it's the things you're doing on a daily basis. It is your hand movements while you are talking. It is your blinking. It is your up and down based on your job. It is the amount of walking based on your job. It is the amount of fidgeting that you have. Have you ever known someone who just seems to be like that tall, skinny person, and you're like, they're always bouncing their leg and they've got a hollow leg and they're always fidgeting? Yeah, that's just the way that their genetics are for them. When they have calories in, they fidget more. They naturally move more. Their NEAT is much higher. It's the activity that they're doing on a daily basis. When I put a lot of calories in my body, my leg is fidgeting constantly. It's just the way that it goes, right? When I have less calories in, I'm like a bump in a log. When I've done an extreme calorie cut for a photo shoot and I was getting down deep into single-digit body fat levels, like everything, my talking was like this. I barely moved my body. It's your body's natural response to the amount of calories that are within it. This is an unconscious base, right? But it's important to take into account. If someone who has a lot lower NEAT versus someone who has a lot higher NEAT, they are naturally going to get more calories within their daily activity. And so therefore they can have more calories and still burn weight, right? And so I know that's not fair. It's just the reality of it, right? It also goes to say that some people say, well, I don't understand. Like I eat the exact same amount as my significant other and they lost all this weight. And honestly, they eat more and they change less things and it's just not fair. And I don't. Oftentimes when we're looking at that, we are looking at someone who may be 5'3" and someone who is 6 foot tall. Typically, that 5'3" person is of the gender female and that 6 foot person is male. Females carry less muscle mass naturally. Males carry more, right? Females carry more fat naturally. This is part of the reproductive cycle. It is natural. It is essential. right? And they carry less muscle mass. And so if you are both eating at the exact same calories, you probably don't get the same amount of calories. And so unfortunately, someone who is at that level does need to have a lot less calories because their body does not require it as fuel for living. It does not need that much based on meat, right? Based on those elements that are within there. And the second piece of this, though, is cardio. It is all that extra that is important. But I look at cardio as your activity that is aerobic in nature, right? So it's walking, jogging, swimming, hiking, conditioning, HIIT. Now, for most people to truly be successful, they actually do a lot less on the intensity side. Most people that have the physiques that you're after, if they do anything, it will be a lot of walking and just daily movement that burns a lot of calories. This is why the whole magic 10,000 steps is very valuable. There's no science that makes 10,000 steps some magic number. It could be 6,000, it could be 20,000. It's irrelevant of what that is. It's just that it is a nice, round, solid target that they have found is one that is easy for people to wrap their minds around. So it is just about getting steps on a daily basis because those are all calories that are being burned. The more you move, the more you burn, right? The less you sit, the more you burn. And so there's just some truth in that. The more that you do intense-based things, the more it's going to be harder for your body to recover. So that goes back to that conversation about recoverable dose. So you do want to look at it from that aspect. What can you recover from? And oftentimes people doing too much HIIT, high intense interval training, they're frying their central nervous system, never getting a chance to recover. So oftentimes I find that for most people, 4 strength training sessions a week, 1 sprint session or conditioning session or HIIT session, but HIIT would be the third on the list there, works really well because it's explosive bursts that are happening and then recovering down. And so it's taxing you in a different way. And then just lots of daily steps and walking. And it works extremely well because that is decreasing the amount of stress that your body has when you're walking. You're also then getting outside. You're doing all these other things we're going to talk about in a second, which are these sneaky bonuses. So we look at these sneaky bonuses. There's this one right over here called micronutrients sitting above, in my opinion, just right above strength training, right below NEAT cardio. And it is, your micros are a sub branch of your macros. So your macros are your proteins, carbs, and your fats, but those can be formulated in any way possible. However you want to get protein, protein is protein. Whether it is a whey-based protein from a powder, whether it's protein in a bar that comes from peas and soy, whether it is chicken or steak, right? It is all protein that is being consumed. But when we look at the micronutrients, oftentimes that is your nutrients that are coming within those. And one of the most key ones that most people don't get enough of is fiber. So we're looking at fiber, we're looking at vitamins, we're looking at minerals, magnesium and potassium, and these things that are the micros that are essential for an optimal body performance. But ultimately, let's go back to adherence. Let's look at what this is. This is the hierarchy of importance. Calories are king. Macros are queen, right? Then strength training. Then we can focus on our micronutrients. Are they going to be helpful? Are they going to help you change your physique in some capacity and lose fat? Absolutely. Because ultimately, if you learn to love high fibrous, green, rich foods as vegetables and to replace your sugar with fruit, you are going to be more successful. It goes without saying, but we need to get the baseline first, right? So if at first you're able to just have some protein bars sprinkled in within your mix, that's absolutely great because it's going to keep you on track much longer than going with the extreme. But fiber is absolutely a critical one. Now you look over to the right here and it's going to say equals. I feel that NEAT and cardio are equal to recovery. And the main recovery tool is sleep. Because if you're not able to recover from your sleep, from your strength training, right, you're not going to be able to rebound from that. Your body isn't going to adapt and change the way that you would like and ultimately could break down, right? And so we need to look at other elements. And that's why walking for me under that cardio aspect is so critical because you're getting outside. So you're getting fresh air, you're getting sunlight. So you're getting that wonderful vitamin. And you're also usually seeing some greenery, which is also proven to decrease stress as well. And that's all we're trying to do is get our body to de-stress. At the very top, see supplements. Supplements helpful, but usually only equates to usually 1 to 5% of the actual physique changes that you will see. And maybe this is just because, and I don't count supplementing protein powders with your supplements. I consider that as a form of making it work within your macronutrients. But I'm talking about things like creatine, talking about things like magnesium, fish oil, a daily multivitamin, a greens powder. Yes, they're very helpful to fill in all of the gaps. That's what a supplement is. It's to supplement where you are missing these other elements. But what I find is for most people, the reason that they're not going to see many changes from it is because it's not going to put them into a calorie deficit, and it's not going to make them train harder during their workout for the most part. And so those are the two main elements there that lead well beyond the need for supplementation. And when we are looking at changing lifestyle, if we are changing too many things, as we know, we will fail. We will stop. And so until we have our calories and our macros as kind of a main daily focus, and we know where to kind of live and be and make that modifiable and work for us, and we're strength training on the regular, like we don't need to be focusing on adding supplements into the mix. That would just be one more thing. All right, so that covers everything. I am going to do another presentation soon on macronutrients and dive in a little bit deeper for you guys. I feel like it would be very helpful. But as always, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them over. Just reply back first via email or however you would like to reach me. I'm very accessible. So hope that was helpful, and have a great day.